Okay, good morning, everybody. How are we doing? Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a really good presentation for you. Chemical storage, how to avoid blowing up your shed and other helpful hints. It's kind of a funny image, but in reality, this is serious stuff. And we're going to show you some tools and how Chemwatch technology can help you avoid unpleasant things and harmful things. So without further ado, slide. So your host today, my name is Paul Benbow. I'm a business development manager, and then Tom Hassey will also be doing most of the presentation and the demonstration. And we got the full Chemwatch team joining us. We have Augusta Brinley, Amy Pina, and Arnold AJ Kofi will be helping on the question and answers and coming in at the very end. So there is a question and answer box. So on the bottom or top of your screen, depending on your configuration, you'll see a Q&A. You can just click that button. Simply put in your questions as we're, cruising along, and then we'll do our best to answer them in line, or we will cover them at the end. If we run short of time, we will stay over, but allow everybody to leave, exactly at top of the hour. We also will send out our usual question and answer summary. So all these questions we documented, answered, and we actually have some of our other team answer some of the questions just so we can make sure we give you a complete answer. So look for our email and follow up. And of course, there'll be a link to the recording and things like that. Okay, now I'd like to tell you a little about Chemwatch before we get started. Slide. Okay, so Chemwatch, we've been in business over 30 years. We are a market leader. Of the Fortune 500 companies, 6 of the top 20 have our products. We have over 5,000 clients. We are a global company. We're headquartered in Melbourne, Australia. We have a team of about 300, toxicologists, regulatory experts, industrial hygienists, IT people, staff. So we're, a larger company in this space. And we have a lot of experts on staff. We do a lot of things. We automate SDSs. We create SDSs. We have an API that can tie into existing systems, be it SAP or some other system. In-house team of developers and IT people. We do all our own development. Our entire package was written from scratch by our development team. We haven't bought anybody else's technology. We are Oracle as well as Amazon Web Services. We do support 47 languages. We have a database and we can cover over 90 countries. So to kind of give you a quick agenda, what do I do with my chemicals? What is a hazardous chemical versus a dangerous good? How do you know which categories to fit your chemicals into? What are incompatibilities that you have with your storage? All these things will be covered in this webinar, and we hope at the end you'll see how Chemwatch can help. But the nitty-gritty is reporting. How do we make sure that we're compliant? We have reporting and we do everything correctly. Chemwatch can hit it out of the park here as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Tom Hassey. At the very end, like I mentioned, we will have a Q&A. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Paul. Welcome everyone again. If you have any issues with sound or screen, raise your hand. We'll get it straightened out. So before we get started, and what we're really going to be talking about here is how can Chemwatch help you build a chemical register to ensure regulatory compliance, and then within that register, develop a manifest so you can report on the hazardous materials that you have on site. So let's do a little chemistry 151 here, and let's make sure we all understand what we mean by hazardous substances versus dangerous goods. Hazardous substances have the potential to harm human health. As simple as that. They can be in all forms of matter. They produce vapors, fumes, dusts, mists, and they are classified by whether the health effect is immediate or long-term. Dangerous goods are things that are corrosive, substances that are corrosive, flammable, combustible, explosive, oxidizing, or other hazardous properties that can cause explosions or fires, serious injury or death, large-scale damage. Examples are gasoline as flammable liquids, corrosives like hydrochloric acid, flammable gases like liquid propane, asbestos, explosives, etc. Oop, and I do apologize. Let me just go back real quick. I didn't click in the icons there. My apologies. Anyway, you see the big 9 out of DHS under dangerous goods. So a register, what is that? Let's describe that briefly. I'd mentioned earlier, it's a list of all chemicals that are stored, handled, or used at a workplace or at a site. And according to OSHA, this register needs to be readily accessible to all workers involved in the use, storage, or handling of hazardous chemicals at the workplace. Readily accessible, what does that mean? The documents need to be accessible without difficulty in hard copy, electronic, or other forms. So the SDS as well has to be available for emergency response workers, anyone else who's likely to be exposed to the hazardous material in the workplace. These need to be kept up to date. And again, the difference, register versus manifest. The manifest is a list of all hazardous materials at a workplace. Really, it's a subset of the register. We'll talk more about this later in the webinar. So we make it easy for you to develop a register. So what I'm going to be doing here in the next 20 minutes or so is going in between PowerPoint and the application. So this is what our application looks like. You have functionality based on the license in terms of making labels or authoring a risk assessment. Again, this is user dependent. Then you have ability to get some help in terms of using the product. And then we have a search panel here where you can either search your full collection or your own collection for materials. But since, and then once you have a register built, you can then search in your own. But for now, what we've done is we've created a set of folders, or I have, and we will do this for all new customers, is I create a set of folders that represent the materials on your site, the physical location of those materials. Why? This is how you want to report, correct? And the way our register tool works is at the folder level. So by using the folders, you're basically accessing your register or manifest to do your reporting. So when we first engage with a customer, we build this for them. But you can build it as well. It's very simple to do. Also, all these SDSs we have in here, these are, and I'll just click on one real quick. We do all the updates on these. I have 5 that came up because I have 5 benzenes in that folder. So at any time, the user can access the SDS in this register, but also we're doing all the updates for you behind the scenes. We'll send you a report telling you what's going on. Paul will hit on this later. So what I have here is I have what's called a Michigan folder, and you can see I have a fictitious company called AAA, and where I've set up country folders, and then underneath, in this case, the US folder, I have a set of states, and you can do your own just by going to create. Pick the folder type. I'm picking storage, but you have 43 choices in our system. Why all these choices? Again, your register and manifest are being structured so you can do reporting from it. Here's an example. You can define, you can have sprinklers controlling this. What level of the floor are you going to be putting this material on? And then you pick an owner, you can pick country language, and then you're done. It's as simple as that. It's creating new folders. But again, we've done these for you, but you can add on to them. So in this case, I've clicked on the Michigan folder. And again, what you have here is a register of the materials with certain information against them. Obviously, I mentioned the SDS, the vendor name, CAS number, the DG rating, the volume, the packaging, the UN code. So you have a lot of information in this register, and it's created very simply, and I'll show you in a minute, by going into our collection, finding SDS and dragging them into the folder. It's that simple. So you notice I have this gold icon next to, let's say, benzene. So what comes along with our register tool is when you bring in your SDS, we have about 350,000 of these gold SDS that we, Chemwatch, author with our chemists, toxicologists, etc. And these are worker safety documents. It's the best. It's vendor independent. It's a material. So in other words, I may have 4,500 toluene vendor SDS in the database. I only have 1 gold toluene. So it's vendor independent. These were developed about 10 years ago at a request of a global multinational customer of ours who said, help Chemwatch with my variability on the safe substance between vendors. So they were looking for what we'll call a neutral party that did not sell a chemical or product that could define these documents from a worker safety point of view. So what does that mean? Well, if we go into exposure, what we've done is we're going to tell you the glove type to use based on material using the Forsberg index. For respirator, we're telling you by particulate size. We populate these documents in 93 country formats. So when you go to the regulatory section, you have in-country regulations. You have disposal instructions, not see local local requirements. We tell you what to do based on that country. Firefighting spill, as you can see, we get very specific. Also, what we have that's part of the Gold SDS, we have something very special from a worker point of view. We call these a mini SDS. That previous SDS was 10 pages. This is one. This is a boil down of all the important information for the worker for that substance. As you can see, I have all the health information. I have the DHS placards. You can see they get large, lack of a better term, on the screen. This is meant to be read in an emergency by a non-chemist. All the H codes, you see the PPE. Expands also, the red ones are Chemwatch specials. These are icons we put in that are over and above what the vendor would say. So we're saying spark-proof plan and no sparks or no ignition devices nearby. All the storage icons, and these can be translated into 47 languages. So these are very special documents. They come, we'll just say free of charge, along with the registration tool. Okay, so I'm going back to my folder, and again, I have 22 substances in here. And so what I can do is, in addition to printing these SDS, print, send, or save, anytime you bring up a document, you can also do this at the, excuse me, at the manifest level. So you just have to go into our report tool and just select all, which means it'll grab every chemical in the folder. And then we're going in our report tools. We have two versions of our reporting. The advanced means I can go in here and create a report on specific data points by picking from over 400 data points in our database to create a very customized report. But what I like to show is we've actually built in here some templates that are already put together for our users. So for instance, I can report on all assets, all the hazard ratings, all containers. Also, I can report on all dangerous goods. So let's pick that. And then I have different formats, XLS, XML, but I also have this formatted template, which is nice because what it'll do is it'll straighten out the columns for you from a spreadsheet point of view. And I know I use spreadsheets a lot, and it's a big help when you get some assistance. Get some assistance in terms of structuring the columns. Sorry, my Excel's taking a minute, but there you go. And that's your manifest report. So you got the material name, the DG class, packing group, UN number. And you can see I created that very quickly. So it's simple to use, simple to put all that together. Okay, so I have a register, as we've been talking about, right? A list of 22 chemicals. But so how do I turn that into a manifest? Well, it's really easy. You go out here. So next to each vendor document, by the vendor name and all the information I talked about, is this volume tool. What you can do is go in here, and now you can change the volume of your material. It tells you which folder you're working in, the name of the material, its state, specific gravity. So you can go in here and change some numbers. Or I'm editing, but in this case, you can add to a new chemical, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So what am I doing here? Current volume, max volume that you are defining, and license volume weight, that might be for your entire company that you would put in here. So all you have to do is do a save. Now you're on the way to creating a manifest. Anytime you're filling out this volume, a manifest is going to be created on your hazardous materials, right? Because you got to report against that to be compliant. Okay, so I mentioned, how do you add to this? Oops, let me get out of here. Minimize this screen a little bit. I'm going to go to the search box here. And I'm going to go find a substance and add it. So this is searching in a database of over, whoops, and I can't spell, and I do apologize. No system can prevent that. So when you type in material, it's going to show you in our database every, let's say, material in there that contains the word, and words, in this case, silver nitrate. And then once you click on it, It's going to show you every substance in our database that contains silver nitrate from 100% down to 0.1 in terms of GHS. Okay. And behind these are literally hundreds of thousands of SDS. Each one of these would have hundreds of SDS. So when I click on this substance, I'll show all the vendor documents that I have available. So you can see I have quite a few. So I do apologize. This set to all countries. I had it set to US. I don't want to search through all this, but what many of you would do is set this for country language of choice. I had it wide open to show you all the documents. It was in like 4,000. So now you can see I'm down to about 1,000. Again, these are all in the US. So all I would have to do is find my vendor, and I can do that a couple ways. I can scroll through here, but I'd recommend just click on the More button, find your vendor. I'm just going to pick somebody for time's sake. Okay, so once I find them, I'm going to minimize this screen only because I need to get at my folder. All I have to do is grab this and drag it over. And it's copied. Now I could, if you'd like, you can right click and do a copy, but again, this acts like Word. So if we were to go in to our folder where I just added it, there was 22 materials before I did this. Now I'm at 23. And I can scroll down through this and find silver nitrate, but if you have hundreds, if not thousands of chemicals, just do our search button here to find what you're looking for. There's your material. Expand your window. Go into the Edit Material button. And I'm just making up numbers, folks. Don't get alarmed. Now you have added to your registration. And you're on the way to creating a manifest because you have added volumes to this. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. So guidelines for storage, right? Now we got to register, and then we got a manifest built in there. Okay, now I'm going to store all this stuff and what gets along nicely with others and what doesn't. So obviously you need to read the SDS or label, and these are parameters you need to identify before putting materials together, DG, subsidiary risk, packing group. Always check for compatibility according to DG classes. And what we can do is make this really easy, because once you have a register, you can do all sorts of unique reporting from it. And again, you need to basically come up with 2 columns of materials, right, in terms of separation and segregation. And so what happens here is our software does this for you. Also, before I go to that, though, I want to talk about signs. This is extremely important. So when do you need signs? And I'll show you in a minute how the software is going to help you with this. But when do you need them? They're required anytime you got hazardous substances or DGs exceeding specific quantities. What needs to be on the sign? DG words, DG pictograms, got to be easy to understand, right, for non-chemists. Where do I locate them? Close proximity to where the hazardous substances are stored. So let's go to that real quick. So again, I'm going to get out of the screen, go into the application. And oh, by the way, before I go here, I've been showing you the super user screen. There's 108 permissions available in the software where you can set your own type of user screens. I have set up one here for a very basic user. You notice no folders, no applications, no filtering. It's find a document and own collection only, print, send, or save. So you can set up all sorts of different user profiles. Again, you got 108 permissions, and we'll set those up for you. You just need to tell us, how you want it structured, and then we'll train you in how to maintain that. So when I'm looking at a register, I can go in and do all sorts of unique filtering on those materials. We do something unique. We have a regulatory list library over 7,000, which Paul will talk about, and we link regulations into the SDS ingredient database by cast number and by material name. So you can do things like show me all your carcinogenics, show me all your enterotoxins, show me everything on site that's oxidizers, do a SARA report, do an DHS report. But for now, we're going to do an incompatibility report. So it's going to look at all 23 of those substances, and it's going to tell you what's compatible, what isn't. In this case, there may be some incompatibilities, and by clicking on the icon, it's going to give you some instructions. What this is really saying here, it's close, check the SDS. Here, it's not close. So it's saying you must segregate WD-40 from these solvents. And we're going to tell you what to do. 15 feet or more. If one's a liquid, you got to measure the edge of the spill catchment area. So it's giving me very specific facilities-rated instructions of how you need to store these things. And it goes through all compatibility segregation opportunities, or you want to call it that the register has presented itself. So anytime you get this report, you can print, share, or download. So I'm just going to quickly hit a download. And what's going to come up is going to come up as a spreadsheet. Excuse me, sorry, as a PDF. My apologies. Right there. And we'll just open it so we can examine it quickly. Again, you can print, send, or save this, but look how quickly I did incompatibility on those collection of chemicals. I have a client, he has thousands, but it took him almost 3 months before we did business with him to do this. So you see this comes out as a DG, or sorry, as a PDF, my apologies. Now where I had those icons before in the system, I now have these, for instance, these letters A, and I have S2. Well, in the PDF, if you go all the way to the bottom, this is your definitions of what those letters mean. So it's an easy report to put together to send out to your people to keep everybody safe. Okay. So because the system's so powerful, I can just flip back and forth. Let's go to placarding. Oh, I may have missed that one. Let's try that. There we go. Mouse misfire. So what it's saying is any of these highlighted areas are going to require placarding. So why only these 3 folders highlighting for me? These are only 3 I have actually added volumes and weights. So let's go to ground level storage. What's going to tell you is this is what needs to be outside the door, so to speak. Basement storage, specifically what's in that folder, is what needs to be outside that door. And then if you click on the Michigan folder, it's going to be a summation of all those other storage areas plus itself. And all you got to do is come out here, print, send, or save. This is common with all our reports. Click on download. And you get, in this case, a spreadsheet. I was ready for it that time, not a PDF. So look how easy I did a manifest, or sorry, a placarding report. So it tells you the pictogram. It's telling you the location up here where you need to do this. So it's saying the Michigan folder under this tree. Down here, it's saying under Michigan for ground level storage, you need to have this. Oops, and I missed one. There's one in the middle. There we go. And then for basement storage, you need to have this placard. And how much material do you have in there, the maximum allowed in the workplace. So a lot of information, easy to create report, as you can see. Okay, so hopefully everyone's not getting too sick and tired of me switching screens, but it's just the way it is, as they would say. So I'm going back to this slide. We just talked about the reports. So manifest inventory. So manifest, again, is a written summary of your hazardous chemicals with physical and acute toxicity hazards that are used, stored, or in the workplace. This is only required to manifest when hazardous chemicals exceed the threshold amounts. How often do you update it? You got to update anytime you change those amounts. And again, manifest is only required when you have hazardous materials in the workplace that exceed specified thresholds. Okay, so this again, right? Let's go back to the application. So let me get out of these filters, scrub them. And what I'm going to do now is create a manifest quantity report. Again, I'm operating on the same collection of chemicals I've been doing all this reporting on. So let the system load for a second. So we'll go back to our trusty filter tree, click on manifest quantity report. Now what we're going to see here is any location that has hazardous materials that are above the manifest quantities, which require a notification, it's going to be highlighted in red. If the inventory is below any of those limits, it'll get highlighted in white or yellow. It depends on the user preference. You can select that, so to speak. Let's give it a second. The system's sort of catching up here. I do apologize. I may not have clicked that properly. I'm like all of you stuck at home operating on a mobile hotspot. So it can be rather, for me, I'm out in the country, so this can be a little slow. But I should have, this should have popped up by now. Not sure why it's, let me just kind of scrub the system a little bit. Let me start over. I've been flipping through a lot of filters. Maybe I confused it. Okay. Oh, I picked the wrong report. My apologies. We know that one. Let's try manifest quantity report. Not sure why it's not firing for me. Just open it. What I may do, I'm going to give another second here. I'll come back to this report. I got some others I'd like to show as well. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not firing here. But let's just move on. I'll come back.
I was going to say only in a live demo, Tom. Yeah, just go on.
All right. So I'm going to back out of this. I'm going to go to another set of slides. And like I said, I'll visit this whole manifest issue here in a minute. So let's back here, move on. I have a couple other sets of reports we can get to quickly. So storage regulations around the world. So every country has its collection of storage regulations that need to be adhered to. You need to report in terms of compliance. Of course, here stateside, we have IFC and the DHS and SARA, three that I'm sure many of you out there are familiar with. So IFC, this established minimum regs for fire prevention, fire protection systems using prescription performance-related provisions and for new and existing buildings. So with our system, you can create your inventory that'll guide you through an exact digital version of your facilities and make it really easy to create this report. So let's do that real quick. Again, back out of the system, go to this, go up to IFC. Oops, sorry, I picked that too quick again. So when I go to IFC, in terms of storage, I can pick health hazard indoor or physical hazard indoor. So I'm going to pick physical hazard. So what this is saying is the reds, excuse me, are areas where the hazard material is above the maximum allowed quantity. When you see the, as you can see, I get all reds, but if it were to turn white, that means you're below. The hazard material amounts in that folder would be below the maximum allowed quantity. And then we have a level 3, it's a yellow, that basically says you're very close to maximum allowed quantity, but you're not over. So we'll just basically think of it as a warning. So if we were to click on one of these folders, It's going to generate all hazard classes, materials per hazard class on that subgrid. And then again, you can do this as a PDF or in terms of print center XLS. So you just go on any of these icons up here. You know, the print center save icons, and let's chance to load. And here's your IFC report for that folder. You can see how easy that was for me to create that. And when you see August, you have extra information, material name, inventory amount, and anything in red basically means this is your problem in terms of IFC. This is what you got to report against. Okay, so you can see the inventory amount's very high for that material. But again, this is your IFC report for that site, and you can see how quickly I was able to create that. Back out all these. Okay, so I'm going to scrub the filters, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. DHS. I'm sure a lot of you have to report on this. These are chemicals regulated by DPA, also chemicals included in the Chemical Weapons Convention, hazardous materials, explosives, and you need to report on the security issue related. The release, theft, or sabotage of this. Release being, how are you selling this? So our tool, again, because we can filter out that manifest quickly, all I got to do is go up here under DHS, or sorry, look for the DHS filter. And it's looking at the US folder. This is a very large folder. This has almost 500 materials in it, so it's going to take a second. Typically, I've been running off Michigan, which only has 23, mostly for demo purposes. It tends to speed everything up. So we'll just see how long this takes to load. This might take a sec. There we go. So what it's saying is under this folder US, and this is basically what's contained in all these folders, plus what may directly be added to the US folder, is these materials. And by clicking on it, it's going to tell you, theft is the problem basically for this one. And I think you'll see this with all three. It's going to also tell you the amount that you have on site. And again, just go up to our, oops. So if we just go up here and let me do a PDF. Get out of this for a second. So really, actually, we have a report tool built into this. We have some ability to print, send, or save up here, but with DHS, we've actually built into the report button, make life easy. And here's your DHS report. The materials that need to be reported on, the concentration of that's the screening. This is the screening threshold quantities for this material, so you can see why it's on the list. Look how high you are. And it's saying theft is the issue, not release and not sabotage. And it's got volumes in there, some other interesting information. So it's a good report, and you can see how easy I was able to create that. Okay. So what I also want to show quickly is you can create your own customized reporting. So I've been using these filtering functions. Again, I can do a carcinogenic report if I needed that. But you can also create, I'll call it some customized reports. So how you do that, and it's a column I've been walking past as we've been talking, it's called tagging. And what you're able to do in our system is you can identify, basically you can build a query which will identify certain parameters you want to search on. It could be a regulation, it could be a flammable family of materials as an example. So if I were to click on this, so I have 489 substances. I've created a special query in the system that is just for flammable aerosols. So you can see how quickly I identified only 2 of those 489 materials being flammable aerosols. And when I hover over that, you can see what the tag or the query is defined as is flammable liquids and an and condition on the UN code 1950 for aerosols. So how I do that, or how would you do that? It's really easy. Just go into our search box. And for you, those who understand databases, it's really a query where if I go find it, I can show you the structure of it. It's a query that I built. When I go into the editing tool, it's going to show you how I build it. So you can pick from our system part numbers, certain forms you've put into the system, a CAS number, a DG class, an H code, all sorts of chemicals of interest. One most people like, a lot of people like, is the regulatory list. I could create a flag in here for the SARA or the Prop 65 carcinogen reg, whatever you want. So in this case, I pick chemical family and flammable liquid, and then I AND it with the UN code for aerosols. You can AND and OR these. You can create a new one. Oop, like that. So you have all sorts of ability to do that. In fact, by accident, I deleted the UN code. So now I'm going to show you how it works. I looked up the UN code already for aerosols. So it's easy for me to do this. I just go in and add that code. I'm asking the query ingredient as well. So I got flammable liquids and the UN code. I save it. And you're done. There's some other work you need to do inside here called a tag where you identify a flag on top of this thing. But in essence, this is the structure of that specific query. And it flags all the materials in your system that are affected, as you saw what I did earlier. Now, why would you do this? Well, you do this on reporting. So for instance, if you need to create a report on flammable aerosols, here you go. Here's your two materials. In fact, we'll go sort it again. And then you'd use our report generator. Now you could just download this and just report on these two if you wanted, as a PDF or wherever it may be. But if you go on our report generator tool and you select all, you could use one of our reports, or in this case, you could report on specific data points against just those two materials. Maybe it's something like molecular weight. So again, you don't have to look at all 400, just type in what you're looking for, and the system will identify those data points that you're looking for. Maybe it is a vapor pressure. It's spelled Australian, so always keep that in mind. So again, these would be data points or columns in a spreadsheet where the rows would be those two chemicals. So you can create customized reports very simply from this. So with that done, let's get out of here and let's go back to our filter. Let me pick the Michigan folder just to shorten things up. I'm going to run the manifest quantity pick again. Now, this is a feature we built out about 2-3 months ago. I was actually using it yesterday, all was well. And again, when I click on it, it's going to highlight folders. For instance, the red highlight will define where the hazardous materials located in that folder, their quantities have exceeded the defined quantity for those folders. I'm not sure why it's behaving that way. Let me yeah, I'm not sure why I'm misfiring here. I'm going to try one more time, and then I'm going to finish up with a few slides, and I'll turn it back over to Paul, who can talk about our platform. Now, what I can do is when it starts working, I'll send you, it's a spreadsheet that comes down. And it'll talk about material name, shipping name, UN number, the quantity in the workplace, and it'll highlight in red very good. I'm getting notifications from my colleagues on Skype. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's go back to the manifest quantity report. I may have been prematurely picking a folder without the filter being loaded. So let me load that. Yeah, it's still not firing for me. Try it again. I'm just keep scrubbing this. My colleague insists that it works, but I cannot get it to work. I was just using this literally this morning, so I'm not sure what's going on here.
Hey, it's a live demo, Tom. No worries.
Okay, let me, if you can put Gusty on our technical specialist, if you could put her on the horn, Paul, maybe she can walk me through this.
I can't do it, Tom, remember? She has to be a host.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry, folks. I'm going to send you a copy of this, but for some reason, I'm not able to get it to work. And it operates very simply. Okay, so I'm going to pick a folder and see if I've been able to reset this function. So I can see it's calling on the folder, but I'm not getting anything. Well, I'm going to leave it here, and I'm just going to have to revisit this, and we'll just send you out a report later. I do apologize for that. So we talked about Sarah, and I talked about the ability to build your own, and inside the system is the ability to flag all these types of regulations it may be in terms of identifying your dangerous goods in the specific type. You saw me build that filter. You could do the same thing with these regulations. Again, all around hazardous materials. Also, we have an ability to map the manifest quantity, severity, classification. We have the ability to map that into geometry of a location. So if someone says folders in building A, if we have the geometry of building A, we're going to show you inside that building where your materials are. And the color coding means that's much more hazardous than the green. So we're going to be able to color code it based on severity. So you'll be able to look at your facilities and identify where you have hazardous materials stored and where you don't. This is great for emergency responders, obviously. And also, as you can see down here, we can build the manifest data behind an image, a digital image. So you can look at things like literally at the cabinet level, understand what is inside that cabinet. And then, for instance, for emergency responders, you can understand, geez, can a fire hose get around this corner and let's say, extinguish a fire up in this corner here? You know, and as you move materials around or change your manifest, these colors change. So if you drag, let's say, what's in green up here, you drag it to floor below, the floor below, sorry, will turn to green. So this is something we just developed this year, very proud of it, very powerful tool. So just helpful hints moving forward. Read your SDS and labels, identify the hazards your chemicals pose, work out your incompatibilities, create your register, make sure you got the right placarding and signage in place, put in place any special storage measures, obviously adhere to the codes and practices of your industry, ensure you're meeting local regulatory requirements. Our system does allow that around the manifest level, but you may want to create some tags like I did to flag certain regs that are affecting your chemicals and have all the reports and documents on hand anytime you need it. So, and then our products, as I just showed today, give you the ability to do all this, the SDS and labels and reports and regulations and identify your hotspots, all that's included. And I'm going to turn it over to Paul here shortly, but I'm going to take one more shot at that manifest. I won't give up, folks. And I don't know why my system's not working. And I think I've had enough trying. So Paul, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And I'll send everybody a copy of the report. My colleague keeps texting me image, and I don't know what that means. Maybe I'll be able to save this once Paul talks about some slides here. So.
Yeah, go ahead and make me the host, Tom.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Paul, you gotta accept.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Tom. So just trying to sum up what we just looked at. What you're seeing is a really good database that we have, and we leverage that good data in our application that's very powerful. So we have about 38 million vendor SDSs in our database. We have about 350,000 gold SDSs, which are unique to Chemwatch. A gold SDS is a SDS that we've rewritten. We're not selling chemicals. We're just here to give you information about chemicals. So they're independently reviewed SDSs. And from that, we can basically extract over 200 data points, and we can move those into 47 languages, 90 countries. We can also have those real-time linked to our regulatory database, which has almost 7,000 lists. So Chemwatch data is phenomenal. We have over 1.7 million substances that we've organized into 8,000 chemical families. We also have the world's largest DHS classification database. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we have a very strong team of chemical experts at Chemwatch, and we do still author about 5,000 SDSs a month as a service. We got our start authoring SDSs almost 30 years ago, and we still do it today. So basically a little bit about the application. Everything is plug and play. Everything is .NET. It runs on Amazon Web Services. We're Oracle based. Everything was written by one team of developers. And we have a very robust API. We do support 47 countries, or excuse me, 47 languages in 93 countries. And one thing we do is we update your vendor SDSs, and this is kind of a, it's kind of a bread and butter thing that sometimes I think we don't talk about as much as we possibly should. But we have a really integrated, robust system to keep your vendor SDSs current for you. So we register those, whether we get them through our web crawlers or people submit those, or however we get the SDS, we go through a data extract and quality control process. We review these SDSs, we put them in our database. Once they're in our database, that can be pushed out into a label or a worker safety, safety card, PPE report, first aid report. We can do a lot of reporting. We can push that data into your systems via our API. It could be your ERP system. Or maybe you just want to have a report that you run. You need a compliance report or some kind of report you need. We can do that. And it also updates all the SDSs in all your locations. And we do this via crowdsource. So if you have a WD-40 and 40,000 or 4,000 other people have WD-40, well, they all get the SDS update as well. And we do this service free of charge. Another thing we do is what we call VGD data. When GHS was introduced, it gave us a homogeneous data set, and now we can actually capture more data. So we have a term called vendor SDS with VGD, so vendor generated data. So in our Chemwatch Gold data, we had to actually reauthor that SDS, which over 30 years, we just kept accumulating this data. The VGD data is we actually extract that from the GHS vendor SDS, and then we can take that data and leverage that in our system to create safety cards and compatibility reports, because we actually track the ingredient data. Another thing we just started doing is we actually use idle time on the Amazon Web Services cloud to actually crawl the web. So if we have found an SDS at one location, we'll buy idle server time from Amazon, and we'll actually go back to that location and kind of peruse around, see if there's any other SDSs there. We'll download those, and then we use artificial intelligence to actually see if we already have that one. If we do, is it the most current? If it is the most current, then we discard it. If not, then we put it in the system. And the goal of all this is to make sure that you don't have to keep up with your SDSs manually. We're trying to offload that burden so that we can do it. So we have a lot of really nice SDS reports. For example, one of our reports that's really popular is our compare report. So we can do a side-by-side of the previous versus the new. We've data extracted both, and we highlight in red what's different. So this kind of makes it easy for you to see, well, what has changed between this one and that one? So it's a service that we provide. You're just kind of included with our system. Another really exciting report we do is our ingredients report, our regulatory update report. So because we actually track the ingredients, so WD-40 has an ingredient, and if one of those ingredients came on a list of interest, you would automatically get a report. And you can set those reports up to be weekly, monthly, or quarterly. So it tells you which products contain that. It also tells you where they're located at in our system. So we can actually tell you, you have this chemical, it appeared on this list, here's the report, and this is where you have it. So we're taking the power of the computer, we're turning it back on itself to kind of help you better manage your chemicals with less human intervention, less people actually doing this manually. Another nice thing is because we're cloud, we can leverage that cloud data via our Smart Suite, our mobile application that runs on smartphones, iOS or Android. So in this example, I just simply clicked on that folder that said chemical store. I clicked on that particular chemical, and then I could take my 2 fingers and zoom in, and I can actually look at that SDS on my phone, and I can forward that to all the things you would normally do on a phone. I can send it as an attachment to a text message. I can email it, however you want to use your phone. So our Smart Suite app is very robust. And like I said, we're just leveraging that cloud data. But what happens if you don't have access to the cloud? So we have an offline access that can also be pushed into your mobile device. So you can basically go into your system, create an offline archive, push a button, the system will run, it will download all the SDSs, and you can take that, put it on a jump drive. You could send it to somebody via an email, and then when they don't have coverage, the cloud, they can actually access this from their desktop computer, or they could do it from their phones. You can actually pull that information up on your phone. So if you don't have access, or if you do have access, we give you a way to get to your data and keep everybody compliant. So as I'm finishing up my presentation, I just wanted you to know that Chemwatch has a fully integrated package or family of products to help you better manage your chemicals and SDSs. So please let us know how we can help. Like I said, we do everything from authoring. We do scan in, scan out barcode tracking, risk assessment. Tom showed you a lot of our capabilities just managing your chemicals. So I'm hoping you'll let us know how we can help.
And Paul, if you get a chance, give me the host controls. Audience, I made a minor mistake. When you use the manifest tool, you can't click on like a subfolder. You have to click on the whole manifest tree, and I'll show you that in a minute what I mean. So I do apologize.
Okay, Tom. So you wanna have a third try at it?
You betcha. So have you made me host?
I gave it to you.
Okay. God will be my witness. Okay,
let me know. Your screen.
Okay, now here's where so no filters, and what I've done. So before everyone, let me minimize. I was working off a subfolder, right? Just 20, 30 chemicals, I think it was. And so what you need to do is you got to go all the way up to what we call a manifest. That's the whole folder tree. So you have to click on this. So in this case, I have 3,276 materials under that tree. So that's what you got. You got to start there, and then you go into the filter. And then see, it highlights which folders you have nasty stuff in. So if I click on that, again, without the slang of nasty, what that means is that location has hazardous materials that are above the manifest quantities, which basically says you have to notify. So by clicking on that folder, it's going to show you every chemical, all the hazard classes present on that facility on the screen. So again, you just have to go up here, pick any of our reporting tools. Click the open button. Spreadsheet chance to digest, and here's your manifest of all your hazardous materials. Those highlighted, those are the ones you must report on. It tells you yes or no if you got to report on it. The maximum allowed, what you have on site, its UN number, all sorts of good information. So you can shipping name as well. Obviously, that's always important. So you can see it's packed with information. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone, for giving me a chance to come back. And
I was going to say, Tom, you did great, man. You had a full count on you. I thought you were going to strike out, knock it out of the park.
That's why I'm batting fourth.
Anyway, looks like we got 4 minutes left. Is there, the only other slide I have is just talking about our next webinar, and you'll get that. And we're going to talk about our mobile product line, and that's going to be August 26th, I believe. So that Tuesday, right before the end of the month. So we will have a next webinar. You have that?
Yeah, you're the host now, Paul. Go ahead if you want to show them that slide.
Yeah,
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so what I was thinking is we'll just send out the Q&A to everybody, because I'm a very punctual person, and I just like to end things on time. So why don't we take one question and answer, and then we'll basically wind this thing up, and we'll just send it out via email. So, as you see anything there on the question and answer, Tom?
Yes, Paul, I do. Here's a good one. It applies really to everybody. Could these registers be created for multiple different labs across the university? Absolutely. As you saw with the parent-child relationship on the folders, you can create a whole string. We'll call it laboratories, would be the parent folder, and then list lab 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you want to do. Again, rather than come up with names like A, B, C, D, and 1, 2, 3, 4, use things that make sense. Warehouse storage basement, or basement storage, something like that. So try to use nomenclature on your folders that make sense. But yes, absolutely, you can create registers for multiple different labs. You want to report on lab 5, 6, 7, 8, just click on that folder and do all the reporting that I've just shown you.
Awesome. Hey, you want to do one more real quick before we?
Okay, let's see. I just closed the Q&A box, so my apologies, everyone.
That's okay. I do think our tagging feature is our most powerful feature. So you kind of showed that briefly, but I do think that is really our most powerful feature. Anyway,
it allows you, actually what it allows you to do, folks, sorry, Paul, is with that feature, yes, we talked about reporting, right? The customized filter, I can do reporting. So if we were to go back to that, I can look at a folder full of chemicals, excuse me, and then I can create these unique tags to filter them out. What that's really doing is it gives you access to a regulatory list library without paying for it, okay? This product is an SDS and inventory management tool, but because of the way we extract and link data by using tagging, now you can understand the regulatory effects on your chemicals, quite frankly, without having a regulatory list at you in the and you having to go through and understand, geesh, what on site is the Global Automotive Declarable Substance List? Well, simple. You click on our tag and there it is. So you don't need a regulatory database with our product. It comes with it.
And if you think about it, you would have to have a body. You'd have to basically throw a person to basically look at these boring lists to try to figure out if you have an intersection of a chemical you have, there's something on a list. We're taking the power of the computer, turning it back on itself and doing it for you. And tags is a great feature. But anyway,
Great.
Well, listen, let's go ahead and wind this thing up. I'm very punctual and it's exactly top of the hour. So we do appreciate your coming out today. And like I said, please look for our email. It'll have the question and answers and, total and a copy of the recording, and we'll talk about other things. So we do appreciate your time today. And Tom, I'll give you the last word. Anything?
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Let us know if we can help. Oh, the trial accounts are available for everything you've seen, so we can set all this up for you and you can give it a whirl with your own chemicals.
Oh, yeah. Good job, Tom. All right, everybody. Hope you have a good day. Thanks for joining us.